Today on Have You Seen, we're going to talk about a relatively small-time cult film, Six String Samurai. Six String Samurai tells the tale of a guitar-picking swordsman crossing the wasteland in a post-apocalyptic United States. An alternate history sets the scene with Soviet Russia dropping nukes in 1957. In the aftermath, only lost LOST, Vegas remains as the last bastion of hope and freedom. For 40 years, Elvis reigned there as king. But with his demise, the radio sends out word, and all the rock and roll wannabe rulers are hoofing it to vie for the throne. Even death is said to be headed for Las Vegas.
I got a gig in Vegas.
Six String Samurai is not a great movie, but it has a lot of charm, filled with symbolism and martial arts blended with spaghetti westerns and rockabilly. Now, many people who decide to give this movie a viewing may completely disagree with me and drop out within the first 30 minutes, which I will say is understandable. The movie doesn't get better or change. It is what it is, which for some, like myself, is very enjoyable. Now, when coming up with this review, I found it very hard to talk about it. I don't have access to the making of the film, which is a compilation of interviews and behind the scenes created by Vinegar Syndrome. I would love to see it someday, and I don't entirely know what to talk about, but I am going to give it a shot. So today we're going to talk about the making of the movie, what's available to me online. And this is not a movie review, or, I'll try not to. Sometimes I can't help myself. And I will provide links so you can go watch it today if you want. Outside of that, let's get started. Well, first, rewind just for a second. I just want to say that most of the video will be the trailer, snippets of the film, and some photos of the movie. So if you get bored, I would double task with playing a game or something along those lines. Born after a chance meeting at the AFM, the American Film Market, because of an associate, Lance Munya and Jeffrey Falcon instantaneously clicked. Munya and Falcon were both there at the AFM in order to meet directors and producers, hoping for the chance to show them that they had the chops and the confidence to work within the film industry, only to discover each other instead. Within the very night of their meeting, they had worked out a general gist of what kind of story they wanted to tell, filled with Western spaghettis, rock and roll, Eastern influences, martial arts, and a love letter to Kurosawa. Within days of then, they had written a full script. With that, Munya and his associate, who was left unnamed, went nearly $50,000 into debt in order to finance their project. Using the limited success of Munya's short film, A Garden for Rio, they managed to finagle a free camera and film, which was expired Fuji film stock, and wrangle a volunteer crew that worked for free on weekends, as their child actor did need to go to school, which worked out in the beginning. But, volunteers don't stick around long when you're filming in Death Valley. A lot of the filming was done guerrilla style, as they didn't have permit and had to constantly dodge park rangers who eventually caught them and kicked them out of the park. They managed to cobble together enough, though, for a trailer which they shopped around as proof of concept. That got them the attention of producers Leanna Creel and Michael Burns, ex-Child stars turned producers who worked on shows like Saved by the Bell and Wagon Train. This extra cash helped push the film into completion. At long last, though, with a feature-length film finished, Six String Samurai premiered at Slam Dance Film Festival. It won awards for Best Editing and Cinematography. From there, in the early days of the internet, rumors spread of this slick, quirky indie film. Sites like Fangoria, Film Thread, and Ain't It Cool recounted the wonderful weirdness of Lance Munya's comedic epic. Hype on the Hollywood Stock Exchange, which, by the way, was also the owner of HSX, the producer of this film, wink wink, then helped lift Six String Samurai to the attention of Chris Blackwell, the founder of Island Records, who released albums by Bob Marley, as well as Island Pictures, which produced cult classics like The Harder They Come. Blackwell's newly established Palm Pictures snapped up Six String Samurai, but Palm Pictures was not a major studio or distributor. They liked releasing small indie films that showed at midnight screenings like Rocky Horror Picture Show or Eraserhead. They were a boutique film studio, if you want to call them that. So the movie had no real chance of becoming big. And even if they did put funding behind it in order to get it widespread into thousands of theaters, it was released the same week as Rush Hour.
Amount will be $50 million.
$50 million? And who you think you kidnapped, Chelsea Clinton?
So the movie had no real chance at success, and it didn't really have any backing behind it. The making of the movie was hard and brutal, especially in the Death Valley. But, they did get it done, and they did get it released. So what happened to our two creators that met over chance and created this project together? Well, they retired. Jeffrey Falcon, who spent years building up his resume in Hong Kong in the action circuit, would move back to China and retire. And Munya would go into a semi-retirement, making a music video the next year in 1999, before disappearing only to return 6 years later in 2005 for The Crow Wicked Prayer, where he was the director. Then he disappeared again before coming back with a short film and a 2019 documentary about the CIA psychic program. And nothing, really. Two guys who gave us a good movie with quirky dialogue, amazing action, outside of the Archer's lack of ability to shoot. And just beautiful cinematic shots just left the film industry. And the reason I mentioned the shots is because the cinematographer, who had a lot of work after this, would also leave the industry in 2006. So it's really disappointing that we had such a talented director, a talented choreographer who was not that bad of an actor, and they just both retired and disappeared. And you just kind of wonder, did anyone actually walk away from this movie popular? Does anybody actually have a molecule of fame? Well, there were a few people who did kind of walk away bigger than they came in. The Red Elvises didn't leave this movie huge, but they did gain a dedicated fan base who loved this movie and asked them to sing or play their songs from this movie. The Red Elvises probably came in with the most fame and have used that to make themselves a cult band. You probably won't hear them on the radio, but they have a loyal following. Lex Lang is the voice actor for Death.
They were my best bowlers. The one with the 4 eyes will be hard to defeat.
But he also is the voice actor for Dr. Neo Cortex in the Crash Bandicoot series. This movie didn't jumpstart his career, but it did help pad his resume in the early days since his career started in 1997. And Brian Tyler, if you are a listener of video game, TV, or movie soundtracks like me, you probably know Brian Tyler. Starting his career almost with Six String Samurai, Brian Tyler has become huge compared to everyone else who worked on this movie. His most recent movies were Super Mario Bros., Transformers 1, Fast X, and he did some music for Age of Ultron and other Marvel movies before that too. TV-wise, he done Swamp Thing, Yellowstone, and all their spin-offs, and Sleepy Hollow. But if you're like me, you probably know him best for video games. Not F1, which he did do, but I don't play F1. But Black Flag and Far Cry 3, both nominated for a BAFTA. Oh, and he also did the music for the original Modern Warfare 3. So, quite a career. But many people should have been able to take this movie and use it to explode their career. But instead, only a few did. This should have been the movie that Jeffrey Falcon used to take over Hollywood in the late 90s and the early 2000s with martial arts movies, eventually moving over to the director's chair and working alongside people like Keanu Reeves as John Wick Matrix-type movies. Munya should have been able to secure more movies as a director eventually giving us more weird and zany-like films. I mean, just imagine if he did like Valerian, the City of a Thousand Planets. But instead, they just disappeared into the background, leaving behind a cult-worthy film. A film, by the way, that you can watch here. So this movie may have floundered and then became relatively unknown before the age of YouTube. But because of YouTube, it's finding a second life. And maybe we can start getting weird projects like this again. But outside of that, I don't really have anything else to say. I could give a movie review, but I would rather that you watch it and come to your own conclusions. Anyways, you guys have a good one. Bye.